At the beginning of the 20th century, a fundamental and legendary book was published in Germany by Max Weber titled The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. In this work, Weber sought to illustrate how religious beliefs influence economic and political theories. To summarize the core idea of this book, Weber argued that, following Martin Luther and the Reformation, a new concept emerged among Protestants, a belief in personal responsibility. Unlike Catholic doctrine, which emphasized the role of priests as intermediaries between individuals and God, Protestantism preached direct accountability. There were no priests to mediate on your behalf. Your relationship with God was personal, and with that, so was your responsibility. If the street outside your home was littered with garbage, clean it yourself. Take action. This was the essence of individual responsibility promoted by Protestantism. You are responsible for yourself and, by extension, for the world around you. Weber linked this mindset directly to the Protestant interpretation of Genesis. The first commandment given to humanity in the Garden of Eden was to work, to tend to and cultivate the world. Even after the fall, labor remained a sacred duty, though now burdened with toil and sweat. Work, according to the Protestants, was sanctified. It was not just an obligation, but a divine calling to improve the world. If there were a parable that encapsulated Protestantism, Weber suggested, it would be the parable of the talents. In this biblical story, a master entrusts his servants with talents, an ancient Greek term meaning gold coins, before departing on a journey. Upon his return, he finds that one servant buried his talent in the ground, while the others invested and multiplied theirs. The master rewards those who made their talents grow and punishes the one who hoarded his gold coins. Protestants took this passage as a call to action, not only to work, but to invest, to innovate, to create wealth. In their view, bringing profit was a way of fulfilling God's work, improving the world, and carrying out the divine command to cultivate the metaphorical Garden of Eden. This ideology took root in Germany, the birthplace of Luther's Reformation. When Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the church door in Wittenberg in 1517, he ignited a movement that challenged the Catholic Church, shattered religious unity, and laid the foundation for modern capitalism. But Luther was only the beginning. Calvin, Zwingli, the Anglican Church, the Puritans, the Pietists, the Baptists, the Methodists, all these Protestant movements carried forward the same fundamental principle: individual responsibility, work, and self-reliance. It is worth mentioning that all these movements are of German origin. The soul of all of these movements lies in Germany. It is the national awakening of Germany. This spirit of Protestantism, in turn, influenced the founding ethos of America. The early settlers were radical Protestants who left England because they suspected their king of harboring Catholic sympathies and due to persecutions. In America, they established communities rooted in self-governance, federalism, and individual freedom. There was no single authority dictating a universal belief. Each community interpreted Scripture for itself. Calvinism, another powerful branch of Protestantism, introduced a key idea: wealth as a sign of divine favor. If you worked hard and prospered, it was a reflection of your faith. But what should one do with accumulated wealth? The Calvinists rejected both hoarding and charity. Burying wealth, as in the parable of the talents, was condemned. But so too was giving it to beggars, as that would encourage dependency and laziness. Instead, wealth should be reinvested to generate more wealth. This idea became the ideological backbone of capitalism. Weber's argument extends beyond capitalism, suggesting that religious thought has shaped even seemingly opposing ideologies, such as communism. While capitalism and communism appear to be in conflict, both share a fundamental characteristic inherited from Christianity: the belief in a linear progression of history in contrast to the cyclical notion of history as developed by the ancient Greeks. Christianity introduced the idea that history is guided by divine providence, a purposeful movement toward a destined end. But during the Enlightenment, thinkers like Voltaire questioned this notion. When the devastating earthquake of Lisbon struck in 1755, killing thousands, Voltaire famously asked, "Where was divine providence?" He rejected the idea of a God directing history, but he did not reject the idea of historical progress as an internal law of history. Instead, he proposed that history advances through reason, science, technology, and human effort. This secularized teleology, this belief in an internal mechanism, an internal law, driving history forward and not God, was embraced by Kant, refined by Hegel, and ultimately transformed by Marx. Hegel envisioned history as the unfolding of a universal spirit through dialectical progress. Marx inverted Hegel's idealism into materialism. For Marx, history was not the realization of a divine or philosophical spirit, but the struggle of material forces, specifically class struggle, driving society toward a final stage, a classless communist utopia. It is worth mentioning again that all these philosophers and thinkers are of German origin. The soul of all of these movements, as with the many Protestant movements that we referred to earlier, lies in Germany. In many ways, Marxist ideology mirrors Christian eschatology, as seen from John's revelation with man following a downward spiral, not that of progress, with battles raging between good and evil, in which, in the end, good prevails. Just as Christianity speaks of humanity's fall and ultimate redemption, Marxism describes history as a journey from primitive communal living through the corruption of private property toward a future classless paradise. Marx replaced divine providence with historical materialism, but the structure remained the same. As Dostoevsky astutely observed, socialists are simply Christians without Christ. Even the idea of common ownership, central to communism, has deep Christian roots. The earliest Christian communities, as described in the Acts of the Apostles, lived with all possessions held in common. The Essenes, an ascetic Jewish sect, practiced communal living, influencing early Christianity. This emphasis on shared wealth later resurfaced in various Christian movements, the Paulicians, the Bogomils, the Cathars, each promoting ideals of economic equality. Even monastic life, with its rejection of private property, echoes the communal ethos that later found expression in communism. It is worth mentioning that this ideal of the early Christian communities, of common ownership, was the main reason that provoked the hostility of the Roman Empire and relentlessly persecuted the Christian faith. The Romans were irreligious. They did not care whether your God was called Yahweh or Jesus or Mithras, as long as you offered a prayer or a sacrifice to the emperor. They did care that many Christian communities lived in common ownership, and this was seen as a danger to the regime, to the power of Rome. Max Weber was right. Religious ideas do not exist in isolation. They shape economic systems, political ideologies, and the way societies function. Religion, politics, and economics are deeply intertwined, each influencing the other in profound ways. To conclude, let me leave you with an image, one that transcends religion, philosophy, and ideology. A few years ago, as the Voyager spacecraft prepared to leave our solar system, NASA commanded it to take one final photograph of Earth. The result was the famous pale blue dot, a tiny speck of dust, barely visible against the vast blackness of space. That infinitesimal speck is our entire world, the sum of all human history, ambition, and thought. And yet on this speck of dust, a species emerged from the caves, striving to become something greater. A species that dreams of utopias, imagines futures, and believes in progress, whether through divine providence, capitalist enterprise, or revolutionary change. Whether this drive will lead us to a better world or to destruction, we do not know, but one thing is certain: it demands our constant vigilance. In conclusion, Weber linked Protestantism to capitalism through personal responsibility and work ethic. Protestantism emphasized direct accountability to God, influencing economic and political systems. The parable of the talents encouraged investment and wealth creation. Calvinism promoted reinvesting wealth rather than hoarding or giving it away. Religious beliefs shaped both capitalism and communism, with shared ideas of historical progress. Marxism retained Christian eschatology structure, replacing divine providence with materialist progress. Communal ownership, central to communism, has deep Christian roots. Religious ideas continue to shape our world, influencing how societies function and evolve. Thank you for your attention. If you liked the video, click the like button. For more religious, historical, and socio-political videos, consider subscribing.